Okay, today we'll pay homage to someone who doesn't need a lot of introductory words. That is Michelangelo himself. He died on the 18th of February, and let's read a little bit about him. I will only talk about him as an architect today, because on March 4th, when it will be his birthday, I will present him also as a great painter, and even greater perhaps. No, I shouldn't say so. An equally great sculptor, and an equally great drafts person. I don't know if I could call him so. His drawings are formidable, and we'll see some of them today as well. So Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni. As you can see, he had a longer name, not just Michelangelo, but when you arrive at this level of excellence and fame, one word is enough: Michelangelo, or one name. You see, he was born on March 6, 1475, and died on the 18th of February, 1564. Known simply as Michelangelo, Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet of the high Renaissance, born in the Republic of Florence, who exerted an unparalleled influence on the development of Western art. So again, an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet. I don't see here, who was an Italian accountant, homo economicus, real estate speculator, and things like this. No, he was a sculptor, a painter, an architect, and a poet. And I think it's a big difference between him and so many of us today. But enough with the oblique or not so oblique criticism. His artistic versatility was of such a high order that he's often considered a contender for the title of the archetypal Renaissance man, along with his rival, the fellow Florentine Leonardo da Vinci. Several scholars have described Michelangelo as the greatest artist of his age, and even as the greatest artist of all time. Well, these are heavy words, are they not? Although they do have wings. A number of Michelangelo's works of painting, sculpture, and architecture rank among the most famous in existence. His output in these fields was prodigious, given the sheer volume of surviving correspondence, sketches, and reminiscences. He is the best documented artist of the 16th century. He sculpted two of his best-known works, the Pietà and David, before the age of 30. Despite holding a low opinion of painting, he also created two of the most influential frescoes in the history of Western art: the scenes from Genesis on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in Rome, and the Last Judgment on its altar wall. His design of the Laurentian Library pioneered Mannerist architecture. At the age of 74, he succeeded Antonio da Sangallo the Younger as the architect of St. Peter's Basilica. At 74, he transformed the plan so that the western end was finished to his design, as was the dome, with some modifications after his death. Michelangelo was the first Western artist whose biography was published while he was alive. In fact, two biographies were published during his lifetime. One of them, by Giorgio Vasari, proposed that Michelangelo's work transcended that of any artist living or dead, and was supreme in not one art alone, but in all three. Again, art, and one of those three is actually architecture. Where are those who think that architecture is not an art? I would like them to be here and to look at the works of Michelangelo, if they can. In his lifetime, Michelangelo was often called Il Divino, the divine one. His contemporaries often admire his terribilità, his ability to instill a sense of aware. Attempts by subsequent artists to imitate Michelangelo's impassioned, highly personal style resulted in mannerism, the next major movement in Western art after the High Renaissance. So this was the man. Apparently, he actually made a self-portrait in the Sistine Chapel, but I don't think I have it on this in this presentation, but I will present it on the 6th of March. Anyway, let's look at some of his architectural works, because as I said, today we'll focus on architecture, Michelangelo's architecture. St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, where he worked mainly on the western side of the basilica. We all know how it is. I mean, from far away and so on. It's the center of Christianity, and the dome was done by him. Again, let's remember, he started to work when he was 74. 74. Now the colonnade here is by Bernini. The facade is not by Michelangelo, by Carlo Maderno, but the dome is by him. And actually, the plan of the Basilica, St. Peter, the plan that he advocated and designed was different from what we see here, from what was designed. So we have Bernini here, and then here is St. Peter's, postmodern architect of appreciable fame, Leon Krier, at one moment proposed here a triangular swimming pool, replacing I don't remember if he actually removed the obelisk, but he proposed a triangular swimming pool in this open space in front of San Pietro. Kind of strange. These are, I mean, St. Peter is St. Peter. We cannot, you see it in the context of, the pyramids behind and so on. I read somewhere, and I don't know if it is true, that Michelangelo's aim was from the beginning to carve a mountain, but apparently his first job, so to speak, was to carve a snowman. I don't know if it's true. It doesn't sound like a true story, but it's maybe a little bit amusing. A conjectural view of the old St. Peter's Basilica from 1891. This is how it was before St. Peter began, to crystallize as the new work. There was a basilica that this was imagined in this engraving, how it looked like before the actual building that we look at now came into being. Bramante's plan, because there were several plans that preceded Michelangelo's plan. This was Bramante, himself a remarkable architect. Let's not forget his Il Tempietto in Rome. I almost said a delicious little temple. And there is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drawing by Palladio of Il Tempietto, one of the best drawings in the 4 books on architecture that Palladio wrote. And now Raphael, so we are going to see 4 plans. I hope I have all the, yes, Michelangelo Maderno. Yes, maybe I should begin with this. So on the left is the old St. Peter, and we saw it in that engraving, and maybe I'll go back to it to look again. So before the new building, which right now has this plan, it was this old St. Peter Basilica from the 4th century. Then Bramante in 1506 made a plan for a new St. Peter like this. Then Michelangelo did one like this. Here you see almost a sense of rotation. you know, two rotated squares. It's one like this and one rotated, but a little bigger. This kind of, there is a difference between Bramante and Michelangelo. Also, the walls here are much thicker. But it would be interesting to actually see the succession of these plans. And then this part remained as Michelangelo designed it. And then Maderno added this. Some people are critical of what Maderno did. Both Bramante and Michelangelo had a different vision. But anyway, the building now, it is like this. So 1506, 1546, 64, and then 1607, 1612. Bramante, Michelangelo, Maderno. And the old basilica as it existed before. So let's, that's how, you know, an artist or an architect imagine that the old basilica look like. And then this is the building as, you know, Maderno worked on the elevation and, you know, lengthened, you know, the nave of St. Peter. Bramante's plan, it's this one. And then came Raphael's on that, you know, that drawing with 4 plans. Raphael's is not, I mean, the plan of Raphael is not shown, but this is it. And it's interesting because this plan is different from, very different from Bramante and from Michelangelo. In a way, it connects somehow with the first, the old Peter's, that basilica. And because of the length of the nave here, maybe a little bit with the final work as it was built by Maderno. But again, it moves me because here we are dealing with artists, you know, Bramante, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Maderno. And when I think of the poverty of, no, I shouldn't again get carried away by negativity. But it does bother me that we fractured architecture from art. And this, I think, is fatal. It is fatal. Yes, architecture is not only an art, but at its best, it becomes art. And those who are artistic irritate us. You know, like, for example, Frank Gehry, who in his last work in Arles, in the south of France, he inspired himself from the painting of Vincent van Gogh, and he has many detractors, and many people throw stones at him. But the truth is, he tried to bring back, you know, the capriciousness, the subjectivity of architecture, which was killed by functionalism and all kinds of pragmatic. Sorry about the spelling here. It's Michelangelo's plan is this one. Not very different from Bramante's. I mean, it is different, but conceptually perhaps not too different. And then, but maybe we can contemplate a little more and to compare it with Maderno's plan. I hope I have it here. You know, it's clear that Michelangelo's contribution was kept. You know, until here, it's what he built, what he imagined. But then Maderno came and added this part, and in a way, it weakened the building. Here is a work by Bramante again, and not by Bramante, sorry, by Bernini. But the dome is formidable. And again, you think, you know, this was a man at 74 or more. He began to work at 74. And I refer again to Frank Gehry. He's 93 years old. He will be 93 in a few days, in February. He was born in February. And he's still kicking, so to speak. He's still producing works at 93. Now the Bramantes dome, but this is a more recent, you know, graphic representation of Bramantes dome. Now Sangallo's design, a very different design. There were important artists and architects who envisioned, you know, a new building for St. Peter. This is by Sangallo, and yeah, it is significantly different from the buildings that you know the other architects envisioned and the one that was built. Now, St. Peter's Basilica from Castel Sant'Angelo, showing the dome rising behind Maderno's facade. Castel Sant'Angelo, which was the Emperor Adrian's mausoleum. It does seem indeed that this facade, the main facade of the building, as it was built, is somehow in a different spirit from the more heroic part that Michelangelo worked on. The engraving by this person was published in 1569, 5 years after the death of Michelangelo. The dome was brought to completion by Giacomo della Porta and Fontana. It's immense. I had been there. It is immense. You know, I mean, I don't know who is here participating in this, you know, day, this evening, talking a little bit about Michelangelo. But it so saddens me that, you know, while you know, we are looking here at a work where the best artists and architects were working on this building, and not only on this building. And in our country, we don't even know who the architect is for the Cathedral of the People, as it is called. It is unbelievable. It is just unbelievable. Michelangelo's plan extended with Maderno's nave and narthex. We saw this. So again, Michelangelo is here, and then Maderno added this part on the elevation. And the Pope talks to the populace from a balcony here at Easter and, you know, in some other occasions. Maderno's facade with the statues of St. Peter left and St. Paul right, flanking the entrance stairs. So this is the balcony from where the Pope, you know, addresses a large number of people who gather here on special occasions. The apse with St. Peter's Cathedral, supported by 4 doctors of the church. The altar that we already saw by Bernini's, with Bernini's Baldacchino. This almost looks like a, you know, a tower that Med architects built in Canada. But Bernini didn't work with a parametry or, you know, with the tools that we have today. The Cathedra Petri and Gloria, also by Bernini, So this is the mausoleum of the Emperor Adrian. Now it's called Castel de Sant'Angelo. The Pietà by Michelangelo is in the north aisle of this building. A perfect sculpture, if we can call it so, or if there ever was one. This is done in stone. I mean, try to imagine a rough, block of, rock of stone becoming this. It's, maybe we are less sensitive to understand the excellence of this work because we have now, video cameras, photographic cameras, but imagine that this was done by human hands like ours with, in a way, primitive tools. The inauguration of Pope Francis in 2013, here it is. While there is corruption within the church everywhere in the world, I still can admire somehow. I look at the backs of these men, some of them I like to imagine that they genuinely, honestly dedicated their lives to God, and with sacrifices as well. They sacrifice some of the pleasures that so-called normal lives have in the desire to serve God, and I think they deserve our admiration even. Porta Pia, another work by Michelangelo, gateway to history. This building has two sides, a little bit different. I was always a little bit confused because I'm not really an expert in Michelangelo, but I try to inspire others to study him more. He designed this, and then also the other side. Near this building is an interesting building, the Embassy of Great Britain. I think designed by Dennis Lusden. I don't know if I have a picture. Look at this, and then look at this, very different sides that Michelangelo worked on. That's Porta Pia. No, there is another work. We are going to arrive at it soon. Anyway, rather strange here, this asymmetry here of this doorway. It's almost impossible for me to understand what made it, why it was made in this way. I don't know if I almost said Le Corbusier, if Michelangelo designed it in this way. It's strange in a way, but intriguing, because otherwise the building is perfectly symmetrical except the entrance. There's just one column here. Did he do it so intentionally? It would be interesting to investigate. Or maybe it was built later, because here I see something else. Or maybe, no, I'm a little bit confused. I guess here is a courtyard. No, it's something strange here. I better shut up because before I say some, some stupid things. Anyway, Porta Pia. Yeah, there is a courtyard. This explains it. It's the picture was taken not quite you know, from a position of centrality, and that's why it looked asymmetrical there. But even this, I think, could make one you know, a little bit stirred up, so to speak, because it's a door within a door, but that door that is within a door is actually not in the same plane, not even approximately. This is it's far away in a way. This work by Michelangelo doesn't impress me so much. Somehow it seems hybrid in the best in the not so happy way. But this is a beautiful drawing by him, and unfortunately, this picture is not doing justice to it. I do have a book on Michelangelo's architecture with this very drawing, but large. It's on the cover of the book, and it's a splendid drawing. We are going to end this presentation with some of his studies for military fortifications. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful drawings. Now here we see again this, you know, it's probably it's possible it was not built exactly in the axis of the entrance door. This second facade. That's why this strange asymmetry. Porta Pia, Michelangelo. I don't know if he built this part. I mean, what is in between these two facades? If this is his work or not, or he worked just on the facades, I do not know. They do seem to be different. I mean, what does this have to do with this building? It's almost like something else. Anyway, now we arrive at a very important work by him, the Laurentian Biblioteca Laurentiana, which is next to San Lorenzo, the great basilica built by Brunelleschi. And this library houses one of the world's most important collections of books. This is the plan. This is actually the library, I mean the reading room, and is this much discussed you know, vestibule where the stairway fills the whole space. It's like a lava. It's like a volcanic lava that descends from the room of knowledge into this and fills it. And what is interesting about this space is that although it's the interior of a building, it gives the feeling as if these are exterior facades and that you are in a courtyard. I think initially this was opened at the top and then it was covered, but this is very interesting because it's actually an interior space, but these are like facades, exterior facades of buildings facing the interior of the vestibule. Here you see, sorry for the resolution of the picture, this is the San Lorenzo, the basilica, and a very important work. I myself was fascinated by it, and I launched some years ago a competition to design the facade of San Lorenzo, because since Brunelleschi's time, the facade was not done. Raphael had a plan for the, I mean, design for the facade. Michelangelo himself, the San Gallo equally, but none was realized. And it's you can see if you are interested in the projects that we received on Icarch.us. There were some interesting projects that were submitted for this competition. And the entrance into the library, Laurentian library, is here through the courtyard. So the library, Biblioteca Laurentiana, is here in plan. There are great works here. Here is also Cappella de Medici with those incredible statuary works by Michelangelo with the two brothers, Giuliano de Medici and Lorenzo de Medici. There is much to say here, but back to the architecture of Michelangelo. Still, this drawing is as it is. The resolution is not great, but we'll manage to say a few things about this remarkable work. Here is the plan of this intriguing and dramatic vestibule, because most architects probably would not have filled, the room just with a stair. But this stair has a symbolic meaning, very powerful. It's truly because it connects the vestibule with the higher level, the reading room, and it is somehow connecting the earthiness, the earth with the above of knowledge. In a way, it's almost, I'm exaggerating perhaps now a little bit, but I just thought of maybe interpreting this stair somehow as some kind of a resembling metaphor to the endless column by Brâncuș, because the endless column by Brâncuș was described by one critic from Austria as being a conjunction ring between the earth and the sky. Here we have the stair, which is a conjunction ring, if we are to call it so, between the celestial knowledge could be perhaps approximated as some kind of an above, and thus celestial, and then you have the terrestrial. So the stair is acting as a medium between the below and the above, and in that sense it might be somehow speculated as being not too dissimilar from the endless column. This is a very powerful architecture here. I mean, these, I hope I have other pictures here, because these walls are, and even this, the corner of the room is again, who says that architecture is not an art? Should visit a few buildings like this, I mean, only an artist could do something like this, really, because you need the emotion, the intensity, the spirit, the subjectivity of an artist to do something like this. I hope I'm not accused now of fetishizing art, but the truth is, it is art. I was there a few times, but I never entered the reading room. I don't even know if it is possible. Maybe it is possible, but I regret now. So, greatness in Florence. What else can we say? So here is the library, Biblioteca Laurentiana. I was very moved by the Basilica by Brunelleschi, truly very moved. I have the highest admiration for Brunelleschi. once when I was here and I was exiting and I was rushing to see the buildings built by Alberti in Florence, there was a man sitting here at the entrance. He was, a keeper of the gateway or a keeper of the doorway, a young man, but I liked the way he looked, and he was reading a book. And I asked him, do you know where this building by Alberti is? And he said, aha, you are interested in the buildings of the first architect, and you turn your back on the building built by the last carpenter. That's how he called Brunelleschi, as being the last carpenter, because until Alberti, perhaps the architect was on the building site, was was a builder, working with the other builders. This idea that the architect can be removed from the building site and without dust on his sleeves and working at the drafting board came approximately with Alberti or after Alberti. But yeah, Brunelleschi was a formidable architect, was just in between quotation marks a builder. But it moves me, even when I look at this plan, the conjunction of human genius here, I mean, these formidable artists, who collaborated, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes alternately, but there was, my God, I mean, yes, we idealize perhaps the Renaissance. There are even people who think that the Renaissance was not so great, and one of them was Frank Lloyd Wright. But I don't know. I don't know. I think the Renaissance still fires up our imagination. It does, and it can do so. And it can do so because it was an explosion of creativity then. And we are looking now at the work. Again, who taught these people architecture? They never studied for an hour in an architecture school. Now we have architecture schools that last for 6 years. And do they arrive at such results? I don't know. I don't know. So again, who taught these people architecture? Who taught Michelangelo architecture? Nobody. But we contemplate a remarkable work. Because you cannot say no to emotion in architecture. You can't. If you do so, you kill architecture. It's about expression. It's about, yes, feelings, emotions. Look at this. Now, if I look at this, I kind of feel that this ceiling does not belong to his vision. Probably this had to be opened, but it's very dramatic, really. I mean, look at this vestibule. It's in this stair is attacking the terrestrial. There is a lot of drama. I mean, Michelangelo was indeed a dramatic artist, and this is shown in his architecture as well. Here are some, I incorporated them in the presentation, some, renderings, digital renderings, or I don't know if I could call them renderings. They are canned images of the of the existing. So our technology is also interesting, and it has its own accomplishments and power. I mean, could we imagine? Let's imagine that Michelangelo Buonarroti was a student in architecture in a school of architecture today. What kind of student do you think he might have been? The Sacrestia Nova of the Medici Chapel was left incomplete by Michelangelo. And I mentioned it, and this is another remarkable work by this great Renaissance artist. He represented symbolically, because actually, from what I read, well, this is supposed to symbolize or represent Giuliano de' Medici, vita activa. Here you have the day and the night. So this is the brother of Lorenzo de' Medici, who is across the room of this famous chapel, which is part of this complex of remarkable buildings there. And let's see, yeah, here is Lorenzo de' Medici seen from his brother's position, from Giuliano. Now, I read, and it is so apparently, that here we have symbolically represented vita contemplativa. Lorenzo de' Medici, the poet, the thinker, the philosopher. And here you have the dawn and the dusk. So yes, poetry is connected with the transitional periods during a day, you know, when the night approaches becoming a day, and when the day ends up in the night. So these transitional periods within the 24 hours of a day and night belong to the poet, to the thinker, to his melancholia, if you want. But we need the poet terribly. So this is Lorenzo de' Medici, although from what I read, the real Lorenzo de' Medici is not buried here. Lorenzo de' Medici representing vita contemplativa, and we see him here again. And then on the other side here, Giuliano de' Medici representing symbolically vita activa, the active life, with the night and the day, the four important temporal areas within a day: the dawn, the dusk, the day, the night. He was thinking here in terms of symmetry, symbolically, metaphorically. It's not surprise from a man who actually, apparently the word concept somehow derives from what he said. Pittura è una cosa mentale. Painting is a mental thing, in the sense that it has a conceptual substance. And this work is also una cosa mentale. It's more than what it meets the eye. Now, I don't know if he worked here, maybe on the dome. I don't know if the architecture belongs to him. It might be that he does. But I'm a little bit confused because the work was not finalized by him. Apparently, even the statuary work was placed in these positions after he departed from here. But all in all, it's a very important work by Michelangelo. And I like myself to often quote from this, this famous pair, these two brothers, vita activa, vita contemplativa, because we need both. And unfortunately, in modernity, a lot of time we neglected vita contemplativa, and we continue to neglect it in the name of production, production, and production again. But you cannot have Giuliano without Lorenzo. No, they need each other. Lorenzo needs Giuliano too, of course, but so does Giuliano need Lorenzo de' Medici. And if we look at the dome of the chapel, is you know, architecturally speaking, is beyond blame, I would say. And again, who taught Michelangelo architecture? Nobody. He had it within himself. Although, you know, he didn't consider himself an architect. He didn't consider himself a painter. And yet he produced some of the most formidable, you know, paintings, frescoes in the history of art. He was a sculptor, but he was also a poet. Here is Giuliano de' Medici. In reality, I mean, historically speaking, Giuliano de' Medici was killed, I think, at 22 or 24 or 26. He was not older than 26 when he was exiting a church. I don't know if not even the Basilica San Lorenzo, and his brother lived a little longer, Lorenzo. I should have had other pictures, but in itself, just this formidable chapel, Medici Chapel, deserves a whole presentation dedicated just to it. So again, Giuliano de' Medici, the day and the night. And then across the space, Lorenzo de' Medici, the poet, the philosopher, and to his base, at the bottom, dusk and dawn. Amurgul și Zori, how do you say in Romanian? I forgot. Zorile și Amurgul, yes, I guess. Michelangelo's Palazzo Farnese is now the French embassy to Italy. Here there were other artists and architects working, not just him. Yes, France was inspired to rent this building, and yeah, they are there. I almost said, I don't know why for the third time I mentioned Frank Gehry. He looks a little bit like Frank Gehry here on the bike, but it might be him at 80, right? Yeah, I find Frank Gehry quite amazing, actually. I think he's a force, you know. 93, still building buildings that intrigue, to say the least. Some of them infuriate. So we have people in the present also who are, you know, pushing the limits, so to speak, searching for new territories. That's what great artists do. That's what they are supposed to do. They don't go on the, you know, on the traveled road. No, they like the untraveled road, which is not yet a road. Palazzo Farnese and the courtyard. I don't know exactly what Michelangelo did here, but I hope I have also here Piazza Campidoglio, which is also a very important work by Michelangelo. Again, I feel like saying Le Corbusier. In a way, maybe there is some kind of a parallelism, or they were heroes, you know. Yes, I idealized them, but they were, you know, they were people who, like Ishmael in the Bible, and everybody's hand was against his, and his was against everybody's hand. Well, these people were also fighters, you know, Michelangelo and Le Corbusier, and maybe even Frank Gehry in his own way, you know, maybe in his Californian way, not so, in a way, maybe a little more populist, which is a attribute not of the highest order in his architecture, but still, like we look here, these diagonals, I mean, there is a resoluteness here in the design that represents the character of Michelangelo. It's very uncompromising. Although he was capable of ambiguities, no, maybe I shouldn't say so, but then mannerism is the art of ambiguity in a way. And he was anticipating, of course, the Baroque and mannerism and so on. He anticipated even modern art, actually. This is, sorry for the resolution. It's a new rendering of the section. The staircase of the Palazzo Senatorio was one of Michelangelo's great remodels. Is here, and this is the Piazza Campidoglio. Here, initially, or I don't know if initially, but here used to be the statue of Mark Aurelius. And then it was removed, a copy of it was placed. And here there is a very, very moving scene in the great movie by Andrei Tarkovsky, Nostalgia, where a so-called madman standing up on this on the horse of the emperor is announcing his total criticism about the state of affairs in the world, and then he ends up in fire. He puts himself to fire. Anyway, this whole square, and this is very famous. I hope I have here pictures of the square seen from above, which a design which even Arata Isozaki explicitly referred to, not to say copied, in a postmodern work that he did in Japan. But all in all, here I don't think Michelangelo did this building, but he did these stairs that are referred here as the staircase of the Palazzo Senatorio. He remodeled it, and he designed the square, and I hope I have here a plan of it. So, of course, this is again in Rome. I suggest to you, if you want to see a truly great film, to watch, if you didn't already, Nostalgia by Andrei Tarkovsky. And there is a very moving scene that takes place right here in Piazza Campidoglio. A very moving scene at the very end of the movie. If Zoom would have allowed me to show in good technical conditions a video, I would have shown it now, but from my experience in the past, it doesn't work very well, video, or at least with the technology I have. Now he redesigned the original medieval facade of the Palazzo dei Conservatori, also in the Campidoglio. There are the two symmetrical buildings. I don't know how the other one is called. So he worked on the facade of this building. You see a little bit here. I hope I have a plan because I like it very much. It's a vortex, a very powerful vortex that Michelangelo designed for the square. You wonder, how come this man, did so many things. I mean, it's amazing. If just one, if an artist all his life did nothing else but the Sistine Chapel, meaning the ceiling in the Sistine Chapel, and would have been considered formidable. But this man did, I mean, many other things, and it is remarkable. It is. He also wrote poetry, and a lot. How many architects today write poetry? I would like to know. Most architects will say, why should I spend my time for something so ridiculous? What do you mean so ridiculous? Maybe we should launch a competition, a poem to architects, to write a poem. Yes, because I believe the sensitive architects and students in architecture could write poetry, but they are never encouraged to do so. They are never asked to do so. And maybe some, without being stimulated, wouldn't do it. Yeah, let's launch. In fact, I will do so. I will launch a competition and I will think about a prize because apparently without a prize, nobody would be interested. A poem written by architects or students in architecture. Why not? If Michelangelo did write poems, why couldn't an architect today do so, or a student? Here it is, you see it. What can you say? It's perfection here. You have the circle, but then you have the lotus, the vortex. There is it's a dynamic complex of lines here that are contained within the perfection of the circle, but they are boiling with energy within. Piazza Campidoglio. So try to imagine behind the Emperor Mark Aurelius, a madman, Domenico, standing up before immolating himself to death, sacrificing himself, protesting a world which, in his opinion, and not only his opinion, went wrong. A very powerful speech by this so-called madman, who even asked himself, why is there a need for a madman to tell you, the world, what is wrong with the world? And he even says at one moment, I'm talking about the final moments of the movie Nostalgia by Andrei Tarkovsky. He says, the biggest problem in our time is that there is no greatness any longer, and we don't have a desire for greatness. Now, yes, this is idealizing a little bit the past, but there is some truth here, that somehow, what we call greatness is rather missing. Something is missing, the longing for it at least. And when he puts himself to fire, it's truly a beautiful, very moving. It's a tragic scene in the film. And then he falls in flames and he shouts, Zoe, Zoe, Zoe. Zoe was actually his wife who died before, but Zoe also in Greek means life, life, life. And I have to say that I feel like screaming in the same way, Zoe, Zoe, because I don't feel there is enough life in architecture today. There are a few exceptions, yes, but not too many. And maybe not just in architecture. Now, the grand design for the Palace of the Holy Office, I don't know about this. These palaces in Rome, not only in Rome, are palaces. I prefer a different kind of architecture. Palace is something that I'm not very, accustomed to evaluate because, I'm a proletarian. And the palace is even for a sacred, the palace of the Holy Office. Should the Holy Office have a palace? I don't know. I'm not so sure. Anyway, he designed this facade. I am not so fond of this work by Michelangelo because I'm not so fond of this function, but that's maybe my limit. Did he believe in God? Maybe it's a strange question. Did Leonardo da Vinci believe in God? I think both Michelangelo and Leonardo had a very complex relationship with what we call the sacred or God. Santa Maria degli Angeli dei Martiri was Michelangelo's final great work, and it's very close to Stazione Termini, to the railway station in Rome. At first, I passed by this building and I didn't know because it's actually a Diocletian bath here, from the Roman times, and some work was done by Michelangelo within within the ruins. It's hidden in a way, but if you know about it, you go in. So if you arrive in Rome, even if you arrive by plane, you'll take the train and you'll arrive at Stazione Termini probably. And this building is very close to the modern train station in Rome. Now, it's true that the majesty, the vigor, the force, the scale of these Roman ruins is formidable. Look at this. Look at these walls. It's God. Only Roman emperors could have imagined and built something like this, and they did. There was power, genuine power then, of course. What exactly he did here and to what extent, I do not know. But I do know there is, I don't know if I have here modern sculpture very close to the interest that I like very much. I hope I have a picture of it, but it's not by, of course, I said modern, it's not by Michelangelo. This building is hybrid, was probably built during a long period of time. I don't know exactly what he did here. I like to imagine, but maybe I'm wrong, that Michelangelo had because of the force, the inner force of his work, had a certain primitivism. Although I'm contradicted in a way, but I'm not contradicted by his slaves, his great sculptures that he left unfinished. I think there was a telluric force in him too, not just the aspiration for the above. There was a terribilità in his work that was visceral, that was heavy, that was even dark. And here I see too much decoration and in a way too much light. I'm sure this was not his work. I don't know exactly what he did. Maybe he envisioned the space and worked on the basics, the essentials of the space, and then in later times, artists and so on, other architects came in and created this architecture. But I have a feeling that this is not really Michelangelo here. The sculpture is not his, of course. Cathedrals and churches, particularly the very large ones, would benefit greatly if they didn't have benches and chairs like here. And after all, can you sit on a chair when you are in front of God and in the house of God? Maybe not. Although, I'm sure it's very, comfortable, especially for an exhausted tourist, to find a chair in the protected environment of a great church. Now I end this imperfect and insufficient presentation on Michelangelo's architecture with some of his designs for forts. There are no images of realized works, but the drawings are formidable, truly formidable, because of their energy, their intensity, and their modernity even. I mean, look at them, just in itself, this drawing shows unbelievable intensity. It's a sketch, but it has force, genuine force, like this one as well. Can Frank Gehry draw like this? I don't think he can, no. No, but what artists today can? Probably none, or I don't know. Maybe there are some, who knows where. If you look at the drawings of Bjarke Ingels and compare them with the drawings of Michelangelo, you see the deterioration of the expression, of the intensity. Many of the things we do today are very close to be cartoon-like. you know, you look at the sketches of Michelangelo and you see a different kind of artist. Look at this, you know, if you didn't know there were studies for, you know, fortifications, you could imagine many things here. They are abstract, they are visceral, they are tensioned, they use geometry, but they are also organic somehow. There is great tension here. I love these sketches by Michelangelo. Who cares that the paper is affected by the passage of time? No, the bullets of the passage of time, the paper can accommodate, so to speak, because the brilliance of the expressive power of the graphic great work that Michelangelo did could accept even the imperfections of the paper, you know, being affected by the passage of time. It's okay. You know, you, the functionalist, would say these are functionalist drawings. No, they studied the fortifications. This was not supposed to be an artistic work, but the expressive power of the drawings belongs to art. Although, as I said, these are studies for utilitarian purposes. Now that we have here a silhouette behind, but look, it's splendid, you know, because here you have the explosion of genius, you know, you have, okay, fragments of some, you know, human bodies drawn here by the great artist, and then you have the great, you know, articulation of you know, walls in plan as he drew them, and it's a sketch, but it's more than a sketch. Is I see it as being alive. It is alive. I admire these sketches very much by Michelangelo. Buonarroti. He was probably an impassible man, irritable and all the rest. But who cares? You know, his contribution to human history and human culture was, to say that it was formidable is to say probably not enough. And look at this, you know, this is almost like an abstract graphic work, but it's actually the plan of some fortifications that he imagined. Were they built? I don't think they were built. But his involvement, like in everything he did, was very, very intense, and the drawing shows it. That's it. So